readers, it's your old pal, Foal Duke here, international affairs correspondent for Horse News. 2 weeks ago, I was able to go to Germany to take part in Galacon in Ludwigsburg, which is the largest My Little Pony convention in Europe. Whilst there, I was able to see and sample many things, including wonderful artwork, wonderful people, wonderful acts on the Saturday night gala party, really great fun. But most interesting of all was the interview I managed to snag for 15 minutes or so with Rebecca Shoichet on Sunday morning. Rebecca Shoichet, in case you don't know, is the singing voice of the main character of the show Twilight Sparkle, and of course, in case you don't know as well, she's also the voice of the main character Sunset Shimmer in the Equestria Girls spin-off movies. Now, there are 3 of such movies to date, and she's had 6 seasons of work for the show itself, so that gave us a lot to discuss, and so I went in there to ask her a few things about the more personal side of her voicing career, and see if I could get some sort of human angle on the thing. This is what she had to say. Very interesting. Oh, and by the way, I apologize for the lateness of this. On the past 2 weeks since the convention have been a hell of a time for me. I've had a lot on my plate. Also, Capper, speaking of late things, you still owe me that cocaine shipment. God damn it! Anyway, here's the interview. Hope you like it. Anyway, okay, firstly, how did you get into voice acting?
Well, I started out doing musical theater, and when I was in college, I was at a place where they had an incredible animation program at Sheridan College.
Yes.
And some of the students there needed actors to do their lip syncing, their final lip syncing exams, I guess.
Yes.
So they had to animate to somebody saying something. So I was brought into the studio to do a few of those. And I had an experience or two as a younger person doing some work in the studio for once my choir was invited to come and sing on an album of a pop artist in Victoria, and that was fun. So, and then we had friends who worked in radio, and I was on a television commercial as a child, but nothing big. But then when I worked in Vancouver, it just happened to be that there was a lot of voice acting opportunities. But I met somebody at a party actually, and said I do voices, and because she said she was a producer of animation and she does anime, and so I auditioned for her casting director, and then I started getting work.
That's fun. That's very good. What made you want to get into voice acting first off, though?
Well, it's just another form of being an actor. I really enjoy any kind of opportunity to perform. And then when I started to experience doing voice acting, it was a chance to be a lot of different characters regardless of how you look, which is kind of cool.
Yes. What is it about acting in particular, just in general, that you like? What was it that made you want to become decide I want to become an actor?
Oh, that's, that happened from a very, very young age. I think I just really enjoyed performing and being on stage, and it's just expressing different characters, expressing different emotions and stories. And telling stories, just being a storyteller, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. When you were first approached to play Sunset, how did you feel about it at first?
Well, I was excited to have the job because just like any of the other actors in the city, it's great to be a part of this show.
Yes.
My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is quite a phenomenon, how it's taken off throughout the world. So I was already lucky enough to be singing as Twilight, but to have a character meant something special and new to the especially to the fandom, but also to me, so I got a chance to express myself through the acting as well.
Yes. When you were first billed to do the singing voice for Twilight, that was obviously your first foray into Pony. How did you feel how do you feel about that? Was it? I assume you were excited, but what did you first think? Were you like surprised? Because it's not every day you get asked to voice a cartoon horse.
Well, it's when you're doing animation, you're already doing crazy characters of all shapes and sizes.
Yes.
So it wasn't that surprising. it was just fun
Yes.
because it's, yay, it's My Little Pony and like a new generation of it.
Yeah.
So, that was pretty cool. And I had auditioned for all of the characters, or a lot of the characters anyways, when the first set of auditions went through. And so I was just really glad to be a part of this new show. I had nobody had any idea how big it was going to be though. So there was no expectations, I guess.
Yes. Which character was the most challenging to voice?
Between Twilight or Sunset
Yes.
Shimmer. I suppose just because of her story, Sunset Shimmer goes through a lot of ups and downs,
Yes.
quite a huge character arc. So she was probably the most challenging character to play.
I can imagine. Because you're singing a character's voice is one thing. It's more physically challenging. I know from personal experience, it's more physically challenging. But to actually voice a character on the whole and bring them to grow, to help them grow, is another thing entirely. As for what else? I'm trying to think. Yes. So when it comes to voice acting, what would you say is the most enjoyable part of it?
The most enjoyable part of it, I think, watching and hearing other actors doing their thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to prelay, you get to be in a room with a whole bunch of other actors, and there's a lot of interaction between the actors, the director, and the engineer, and the producers, and that's, I think, the most fun part
Yes.
about it. Yeah.
Yes. What is prelay? Would you mind telling us a little?
Prelay is when they haven't animated yet. They've done maybe storyboards and some pictures. They have the storyline, and then you put the dialogue. You record the dialogue first,
Yes.
and then they animate after.
Yes.
So that's what prelay is.
Yes. Did it ever feel strange, being a grown woman voicing a teenage girl? Does that ever?
No, because I've been a teenage girl, so it's not
Yeah.
that much of a stretch. But sometimes I don't feel super perky going into the studio. But you have to have a good night's sleep and be prepared to sound younger or
Yes.
sound like your character, whatever your character happens to sound like, whether
Yes.
it's a teenage girl or a little boy or a bug or whatever. There's a lot of different different ways you can prepare.
Yes. On the subject of that, how do you? What sort of process do you use to decide what the best voice for a new character would be when you go in for the first time?
I think you just have to really read through it several times and get an idea. If we're lucky, we have a picture.
Yes.
But if not, you just get a character description of what that person is like, or thing that character is like, and sometimes it's fun to try something crazy. I mean, it just depends on what speaks to you.
Yes.
The writing will speak to you in a certain way, and sometimes you have to take risks. You have to try something a little bit crazy coloring outside the lines, as they say.
Yes.
And sometimes you can do something that's like an audition. That's you can do 2 takes of a character. You can do take 1, sort of slightly more normal, regular, conversational style, and then the next one could be a bit more cartoony, or
Yes.
it depends on what they've asked for.
Yes. I mean, has there been any time where you've thought of going outside the box, but then decided actually, I don't think that's a good idea? Have there been times when you've ever been afraid to experiment? Say, if you thought the director was not going to like the idea you had? Because I've had that before as a young, when I first started doing voice acting, I had that.
Yeah, I think as long as you're, I wouldn't say I've ever been afraid to do that, but
Good.
there's times to choose to offer something up, and other times it's best to just say, I'm pretty sure, gauge from the direction they're giving.
Yes.
Maybe it's not the right character or the right time or the right how the character is involved in the script. Maybe it doesn't need to go really, really far.
Yes.
Sometimes you'll work on a show and there is a need for it to the characters to be extreme because it's maybe a very fast-paced show with a lot of slapstick or something, and you have to go way over the top. Sometimes not so much.
Yeah. When you say you talk about the setting of the show and the themes, the atmosphere of the show, have you ever had any particularly hard to conceive roles? When you try and process, the process you try and figure out a new voice. Have you ever had any that were so enigmatic or difficult that you've had to actually ask for more detail on the show itself?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just choose not to audition for certain characters. We're often given maybe 5 characters to pick 2 from
Yes.
to audition for. And there will be ones that speak to me and ones that don't.
Yes.
And I'll go to the ones that speak to me and that I also think I'm more likely castable for. You have to sort of be your own judge of what your own stronger talents are.
Yes. Which of the 3 films you've starred in, the 3-point films, has been the most challenging role to date?
I would probably say with Rainbow Rocks because it was the first time where you get to see Sunset Shimmer coming up and learning how to fit in to this new
Yes.
group of friends and to experience friendship,
And
true friendship.
And of course you've got Twilight's singing voice as well to do. It must be quite the strain at times.
Sometimes, but not really. We do them on different days.
Oh, well that makes sense now that you mention it. Okay, everybody, this looks like this is all we have time for, so I'm going to have to go ahead and wrap things up here now. My name is Foal, International First Correspondent of Horse News. This is me with Rebecca Shoichet, here at Galacon in Ludwigsburg 2016. We hope you have a fun convention, Rebecca, and thank you for coming. Thank you for the interview as well. Hopefully we'll see you again at some point in the future. Okay, this is Foal, signing off. Thank you for listening.